São 12h17, nós vamos abrir agora para as questões. As questões abertas ao plenário, por favor. Quem gostaria de se colocar? Kaiser? Ok. Depois dos outros, alguém na frente do Kaiser? Alguém?
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was really very clear. Now we know much more about this matter. My question would be, in order to go to an unknown area and to make all of this research, how many days at sea and how much would it cost? I mean, it's just, I know it is a very difficult question, but I just would like to know how many years we are far from this kind of results, and how much money we need to go there. Thank you.
So it's a good question. So if we consider, we can compare with Northern Atlantic. The first active site on the Atlantic was found in '85. So, and you see how many deposits we have now. But there were really intense exploration south of the Azores through several 3 years program funded through the EEC. Then with Russian group, the starting point was not hydrothermal activity. There was just to study the ridge and see where is the ridge. This was the point in the 70s or even in the 80s when we start to work in the Azore area in early 90s. I remember I have some discussion before a cruise, just a few weeks before, to see where is the ridge. Should we go there or move 10 kilometers apart? Okay. So the first step is clearly to start the mapping. And you need time, 88, 85 to 20 years, 30 years. It's a very long-term program. To get at the point where we are on the mid-Atlantic ridge, on the northern Atlantic, but as Georgie has mentioned, we are still learning. Then in terms of cost, it depends. If you have a very small ship and if you are just dredging, okay, it's expensive, but it's not as expensive as, for example, the cruise we had last year, the French-Russian cruise on the Pourquoi Pas, where we are using our biggest ship with all the equipment you have for sampling, mapping, and of course diving. But diving, you have different equipment for sampling, different equipment for this high-resolution mapping. Okay, but and also it depends the cost, because if you are, for example, as we are with the Russian group, when we are inviting on the Russian ship, the French are not paying their ticket, and it's the same for the Russian scientists coming on our ship. So it depends whether you are on the scientific side or whether you are on the commercial side. And it's clear that if you are hiring a ship for oil research and drilling, it's really extremely high cost. But in terms of science, in France, Pourquoi Pas, it's about 30,000 euro per day. But including the ship, the submersible, and this is not a commercial price. This is a scientific price. But so I will not calculate right now in a few numbers, but this gives you the idea. Several cruises a year, 30 days for a typical cruise, and okay, you have an idea. And all this is a lot of money. This is a reason why you have to make international cooperation, and what also we have to get funding. There is a big debate in France and also in Europe to see. Europe is funding some research, but it's never funding the ship time. And when you look at the real price for your research, central part for us and for the deep ocean is the ship time.
Okay, for the first part of question, the answer is that you should prepare the good maps. This is the necessary. You should have a good bathymetry in order to know where to go, because you can make a preliminary analysis, and there are some criteria, morphostructural, where to go. This is for the preparation. As for the ship time, in Russia, the price approximately the same, 20,000 for day. But our expeditions is rather longer, 9 months, or because it's very long distance from Russia to Atlantic, and usually we are trying to make legs and then change the people every 1 hour and 1 month and a half.
Okay. Microphone, please.
Okay, will be a very cheap question after yours, okay? We dove in St. Peter, St. Paul is also ultramafic rocks, and what I couldn't understand from there, or I wanted to clear, I don't know which of both I'm making the question, okay? We didn't see any vents, but we see some kind of alteration who could have minds that was hydrothermal vent, and when we make a radioosmio analysis and plot against aluminum, it could have a clue that could be have from hydrothermal alteration. What I'm asking, how, what could we do to know, or what is a chance, or that we know, or it is a chance, or that could have a hydrothermal vent around the area? What can we do to know there is a vent there or was a vent there? Can you understand?
Yes, it's very simple.
Very simple.
Very simple, because we are looking for anomalies in the water and in the sediments around. So if we will find the anomalies, we can go to the source of this anomaly. The source of the anomalies are the deposits. So we are looking for once again, the indicators of hydrothermal activity or the deposits itself. This is some parameters, minerals, chemical, hydrophysical. That is why we are studying the water above the sea floor and the sediments around, and the rocks, of course. So this is rather simple.
So,
but I think, for example, I've looked at the data. We already have some multi-beam data, but very old with quite a narrow beam. So the resolution is maybe
is
not
to go
enough.
back there.
So the first, if you want to start something there, you have just to follow my line.
just to follow your line and to go back.
You start to have a real new high-resolution map from the surface, multi-beam map. At the same time, you can trace anomaly if they exist in the water column to look for the plume, and then collect sediments and do some near seafloor experiments to see if they are, just as Georgie said, trace the activity. But we know that I've seen recently that in some dredge in the sample area, they dredge some rocks with talc. And talc is typically a byproduct of the hydrothermal circulation in ultramafics. We know talc mineralization is not our deposit, but talc deposit around or even under the site in ultramafic environments. So it's the strategy is there. You need the ship.
So it's a good place to begin with, no?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Two questions before Dr. Roberto Ventura. If you have a tectonic control, did you note enrichment in the intersection of faults? And Roberto Ventura. Se você, eu acho que eles entenderam. The intersection of faults.
Yes, I understand.
Did you have note enrichment of sulfides? Okay.
Not in chemical sense enrichment, but this is potential place for generation of the sulfides. About composition, this is another story. If you say enrichment, what did you mean when you say enrichment? Enrichment of chemical.
Chemical.
Yeah.
Chemical enrichment.
No. Mostly this is a control of generation of deposits itself. This is tectonic control.
Hi, I have a brief question. To Georgi, you present very interesting data on like very high gold numbers in the sulfide deposits. And my question is, you're working at almost 4,000 meters. So how many samples do you have? I mean, what's your which kind of control you have of the distribution of gold or let's say copper, zinc in these massive sulfide amounts? I mean, do you have very good detail on the distribution of these elements, or you only have a few samples that means that you need to do more to understand the distribution, morphology, and things like that?
Of course, it depends on the stage where you are. If you make detailed works and you can make tens of stations, and we have a very good navigation on floor with transponders in order to have a very precise coordinates of each instrument which we use. And we are trying to make a net of the stations in order to estimate the zonality of composition of the ore body. But it takes time, and usually it is not the target for one cruise. Usually we do it during some cruises.
For instance, the Semyonov site, right? You mentioned very high numbers, up to 69 ppm of gold.
Yeah, but
how many samples do you have in that?
We
site?
have only 10 samples for this moment. So all statistics based on these 10 samples.
Then one point to consider in terms of sampling is that sampling for the ship or sampling for submersible is just sampling the surface of the deposit, and to make a real estimate in terms of the quantity, you have to consider that most of these deposits have rapidly shown for the tag area. Most of the deposits have a zonation with the zinc at the surface, the copper-rich part deeper in the system. And for gold, for example, we know that in some places, particularly in the Pacific, the gold is in the low temperature deposit with the zinc, and in the Atlantic, in many places, the gold is with the copper-rich part of the deposit. So you really need to do science to understand these processes, and to go further in the estimate in terms of mining or industrial interest. You need to precisely drill this site. So of course, when you are comparing different sites, and this is a point where we are when we are comparing the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Western Pacific. Some people publish a high value of this or this, but they just have 3 samples. Some other have big samples, but just a few samples, and they have 20 analyses on one sample. So if you want to compare one site to another, you have to consider the strategy you have for sampling, the strategy you have for analyzing, the equipment, and the different technique you are using for the analytical work. So you have to be very precise, and this is one of the reasons why it's not always easy to take in the literature the composition and say compare this and this. What we can do, I think both of us, because we have quite a lot of experience, and we have the same strategy of sampling and of analytical analysis of the samples for a long time, we can be quite confident when we are comparing our own data.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your excellent work and good presentation. I would say that it's very preliminary now, but very encouraging. It changed the situation of the Atlantic Ocean. I know that you have excellent scientific results, but the end of the game is the end part, the exploitability. When do you foresee a possible exploitation of these polymetallic nodules? Because you have good concentration of zinc, lead, gold, and silver, as the situation is now. I know that it's very recent result, even you are working on the subject now. And the second question is, in more concrete way, how do you see the international cooperation? I remember our friend Christian was talking about international cooperation. You also, the main solution will be international cooperation. At the end of the day, one should ask, what is, in a more concrete way, international cooperation? Thank you.
Okay, maybe I will start to answer. I hope that you understand that Yves and I, we are scientists. And the question, when to start production, where, when, and who will do it, this is political decision. Yes, we just obtain the results. And we got some scientific information for our authorities, and we are waiting for results of the session of International Seabed Authority when the whole procedure will start it. After this, we will make our decision, but not when I say we, it is not Yves and Georgi. This is we have some authorities above us who is responsible for all of these things. So unfortunately, I can't answer on your question. But we know that the experience of commercial companies is very effective and successful. And I mentioned that in 2010 already, Nautilus Minerals will start the production. They're planning to start the production of the massive sulfides near Papua New Guinea, and it is already in their plans. They have technique for recovery. They have a system for transportation, and they have a procedure for processing of the metallurgical processes of this. So they are ready to start, and this is a sign that this process will be global, and we are very near. We come very near to this moment when this production will start in the international water. But what time, when, I don't know.
So of course this depends on politics, but also on economy, because when the prices are going very high, there is more interest. When they are going down, there is less interest. But you cannot think in our type of work in terms of in short term. 1-2 years is not enough to prepare a cruise. You need several years. So this is economic and politics. For us in France at Ifremer, we are scientists, but we are scientists making the bridge between the scientific knowledge and the industry. We are just at the place where you do some kind of applied science. So this is politics and economy. Then the second part of your question was about cooperation. Of course, cooperation, I don't remember having been on one cruises where we had only French on board. So it's probably the same for most of our colleagues. We had cruises where we had 2, 3, 4 people from different countries. For example, in Europe, when working in the Azores area, we had people from Portugal, from France, from Belgium, from Ireland, from UK, all together in several cruises, sharing the data and so on. And then Europe, but also other countries, and I heard some discussion yesterday about this, about the word was about training of the young students from different countries. And Europe, for example, is having a specific program to get funding for young students from different countries, even countries not having the ship or the capabilities to organize cruises, and so giving money for bringing these people and these young scientists on board to learn how to work at sea. So this is a positivity, and I know that for the International Seabed Authority, you started last year. Maybe you have some funding to get some students. So my feeling that on different sides of the world, this type of funding, of course, you need funding, but it's less expensive than just funding the cruise. But I think this is a very interesting point for cooperation.
Sorry.
And final remarks that the technological part is very important. Somebody has a very good instrument, another party has another good, and if you will combine them, this is more effective to work. This is very obviously and logically.
Sorry.
It's a combination of this technology for on the Russian side and the French side, complementary in terms of scales. I think we were both efficient to get results at different scale, and it's a good work, and we want to continue this work.
Okay. Sorry, we have lunch now, and but we have 5. We have 4